Well, I've got a little painting to do and a little story to tell. I was thinking about the fact that some of this stuff I'm working on just takes an awfully long time, and probably in part because I'm still learning to do it and I'm not that great at it yet. But the idea came that maybe I don't need to focus on that so much. In fact, it might be a reminder that sometimes taking the long way around is pretty good. Maybe not for me, but that's the reality. So why not just accept it and live in it and find things to enjoy about it? Kind of like something that I recall from my oldest daughter's infanthood. Well, I'm going to do some painting, and I've decided on this brush because it can get down in the grooves that I've cut, and maybe I will not have as much sanding to do if I can keep it all inside. That's what I'm going to shoot for. Got another one that's pretty tight, and it fits the grooves almost exactly, but I think the paint eventually is going to get up the brush and get on the outside. So let's start with the little one and see if we can make this work. I used way too much, or put way too much out last time, so I'm going to try using less. And looks like we got some dried stuff that we need to get off there. Clean that up later. All right. Yeah, I'm doing this in part because I'm so psyched out by it. Because I just need to get it over with, get it done, and do what has to be done to make it finish up. I am going to go ahead and start on the arrow though, because that's the part that probably can take the most sanding. So I'll practice on this a little bit and see how we do. I'm going to get very little there and see how it works out. I don't think I needed the gesso in this after seeing how the other one dried. Um, and I think I like how this is going to contrast with the color of the wood too. Yeah, that's not bad. The title of this episode has to do with something that was one of my absolute favorite memories of my younger life and my oldest daughter's infant life. Sometimes taking the long way around is a beautiful thing. And in this case, it was absolutely amazing. She's heard this story a time or two, I think, so she may be a little tired of it, but I don't think I will ever. I hope I never forget it, and it will always be something that I deeply admire about her, the way she, just the intelligence and creativity that she was born with, not something that I can claim in any way as some kind of nurtured, although I certainly hope that she can feel honestly that her mom and I tried to nurture her creativity. Hannah was just barely walking when we had come to the nursery, probably to begin the process of getting her to bed, and noticed that she was standing. She had uh, begun to navigate on her own 2 feet a bit, but still didn't have complete motor development so that she could walk without support. And we came into the nursery, and she was right by the door where we were standing, holding on to a bookshelf that we had there. And she has loved books like the Lloyd Alexander series that this sign is based on from a very early age. I don't know that we had actually been reading her this kind of story at that point. I think she was still a little young for that. But those kinds of books were already on the shelf with great anticipation that we'd be getting to them soon. She was standing there, and seemingly she was looking at the books on the bookshelf. And we thought, well, isn't that sweet? You know, she loves books, yes, and that has been true her whole life. Well, as we were admiring her increasing standing ability and stability, she looked to, as I remember, she looked to her right and saw the rest of her room, and moved her right hand to the end of the bookshelf, and then next to that was another piece of furniture. I don't remember the details on those, that kind of thing, but there was another piece of furniture, maybe a diaper bag stand or something like that, wastebasket, something. But she slowly but deliberately put her hands on the next thing to her right and got herself stabilized that way, and moved over so that she was standing in front of it, basically facing a wall. But then looked further to her right where her crib was, and it was a normal kind of crib with baluster type slats, and she moved carefully, never lost her balance in this whole event, moved herself over so that she could get a hand on the corner of the crib, and got herself in front of that, and paused a bit to check her surroundings and make sure that her feet were under her. And then she started moving from slat to slat all the way down the side of the crib. And her mom and I just honestly just stood there in amazement that she was making her progress so carefully and with seemingly a very clear idea in her mind of what she wanted to do and where she wanted to go. Now, one of the reasons I'm really glad I get to tell this story today is that my life could be described as taking the long way around. Every time I think that things are starting to come together, starting to work out, I've got my feet solidly underneath me, and I think I know where I'm headed. I think I can make the next step. Something happens, and directions have to be changed. There's been some big disappointments, some big confusion, some big self-doubts, and wondering, what is the next step to take, and is it going to work out? Is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be another disappointment? Well, Hannah had none of those kinds of questions in her mind that we could tell anyway. She was on her way and learning as she went, on how to maintain her position and get to the next place she wanted to be. She got all the way down to the end of the crib. Yeah, I got it outside there a little bit. But this is not bad. This I think is the right brush to use. So let's see. There's the arrow and my feeble attempt to use the nail holes for some kind of effect. I might go over all of this again with another layer. I want to do it pretty lightly so that if I do it again, it will have dried well and bonded well, and we just kind of build it up a little bit. I don't know if I get it built up all the way to the surface or not. Probably not. I don't think it'll need to be. I've got a couple little spots that I started with a little X-Acto knife to try to clean out a bit, but I think the paint's just going to cover those up, so I didn't want to have a mistake that etched into the actual letters themselves. So we're just going to see how it goes to paint over any little nubs that did not get cut out completely. Okay, let's start on the letters. And as I start on the letters, I recall that Hannah was at the end of her crib looking maybe at the changing table or another bookshelf. I don't remember for sure. I'm not sure I even have any pictures of the nursery anymore, as we had it set up for her. But whatever it was, she got to the next spot, and as we realized as we were watching this, that basically almost every inch of wall space had something up against it. So she had a clear path, basically, of things to hold on to as she made her way around. And it was a relatively small room, 10 by 10, maybe 10 by 9. It wasn't big. It was a little parsonage house, and it was like a second or third bedroom. So it wasn't very big, but as a result of that, we had pretty much covered the room in stuff because we had a lot we needed to try and fit in there. So she had handholds basically all the way, and she made use of them. She supported herself. That's another operative phrase in her life. She supported herself as she was making her way around, and we then began to wonder, after she was about a third or a little over a third of the way around the room, what is she doing? Is she just playing? Or is she actually thinking, I'm going to go all the way around this room? I don't have any way of knowing, of course, but it sure seemed very deliberate and intentional and organized. At least that's the way it looked. And she went from what probably, if I remember right, was the changing table to the spot that was that, and that was basically catty corner, like on the diagonal from the room's doorway. And again, both her and her mom and I were standing there, just could not get the smile off our faces because we were just amazed by what appeared to be a very conscious choice and almost a plan of progress going from one position to the next. She moved her way from the changing table, if that's what it was, if I remember right, to the middle of the far wall from the door where there was an outside window, and I think there were shades in there. It was maybe late afternoon, early evening, and there was something underneath it, a little table, or maybe one of her play pieces of play equipment or something. We didn't have like a big dollhouse or anything at that point. Maybe it was a toy chest or something like that. But whatever it was, she again had to. She made a move, and it didn't really matter if the bookshelf was much taller than she was, or the crib was taller than she was, standing there on the floor, uh, or if at this point under the window there was something down a little bit low. She found a way to stabilize her position and keep moving. And even past this window and whatever it was she was holding on to the closet door that was about 60% of the way around the room. Heading back, we finally decided, I think she's trying to go all the way around the room. And got to the closet door, and of course we tried not to have anything blocking that, so there was really nothing there, and even the knob was too high really for her to, oh, got out of it there, was too high for her to really use as a support. But she found a way. Sometimes she'd kind of lean up against something and shimmy her feet side to side across. That may be what she did there. But then she was on the last wall, the fourth wall, on her way back to the door. And she, at this whole time, she had been so focused. She was in her own world. I don't think she knew that we were watching her even from the beginning. She was just doing her own thing. And it was just absolutely fascinating to watch. And she was so careful and so good at it. How long could that have been that she was even up on her feet? I mean, she was not only, she wasn't, it didn't seem like she was learning new skills as much as she was practicing skills that she had been developing. And it was remarkable in that sense as well, because she hadn't been walking for very long, or even standing with balance for very long. She sidled her way along that last wall, and then the door opened in. So the door was on the last part of that wall. The door was in, and she got to the end of that. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember that she even acknowledged that she knew we were there at any point, including towards the end. Like, there was no indication she was doing it to show anybody anything. Like, hey, watch what I can do. It was just she was determined, and she just did her thing. I sure am glad that I got to see that's one of the memories I have of my what would have been my late 20s. And that is genuinely one of relatively few totally pure and joyful memories I have of living in Southern Illinois. And I really am grateful, feel very blessed and very grateful to have that memory, especially in light of how difficult a lot of those days were. Uh, that there was a time of complete joy and admiration and excitement and satisfaction, a sense of uh, fulfillment on her behalf, just being completely happy for her that she had accomplished something that we would never have said, okay, it's time to start learning to navigate your way around a room. Let's go ahead and do it now. No, it was just something that came into her mind as something she wanted to do, and she did it, and she did it very well. Uh, I am taking the long way around, trying to make the most of my days, and sometimes it feels like I've been on the wrong track or um, made mistakes that have gotten me in a bind where I didn't know exactly which way to move, which direction to take, what to hold on to in this life. Certainly holding on to my faith the whole time, my faith in God, not so much my faith in myself. Uh, and I really do draw on that memory quite a bit to remember that still a pretty tiny little baby set out on what at that point was a fairly big adventure, not knowing if she could make it, not knowing if she was going to fall, but going to try it anyway. And part of the reason I'm doing Debt End Street is not directly, oh, because my oldest daughter did this, I know I can do this video thing. I know I can do this woodworking thing. No, it's not that kind of mindset. It's just, wow, what a great thing, what a great gift she gave of, first of all, just simple pleasure at her not unconscious, but just unself-conscious uh, expression of her strength, her creativity, her health, her energy, her intellect, even at such a young age, to be able to not just identify objects, but see how those objects could be used as tools for her own advancement, could be not just a bookshelf, but a bookshelf that could lend her a bit of support to uh, make the next moves in her life with increasing confidence and an increasing understanding of her abilities. How much of that can be conscious and deliberate at, what would that have been? Less than 2 years, less than a year, maybe about 12 to 15 months old, something like that, because her little sister hadn't come along yet. I am glad I get to share this because I think that Hannah is still doing similar things in her life with a great deal of purpose and focus and careful step-by-step planning, and then also with some audacity to not know for sure that it could be done, but to go ahead and try it anyway. As it relates to this project, she's, Lord willing, going to have a tiny little infant of her own soon, and I have a feeling she's going to watch with wonder and enjoyment and happiness at the achievements of her own child. And as far as it goes with me, I think this is true of almost everybody. That does not end when they are no longer infants. The pleasure of seeing that in our own children is a joy that doesn't end, and it doesn't wear out, and it doesn't get old, and it doesn't get boring, and it doesn't get to the point where it doesn't matter anymore, and it doesn't get to the point where it's just, oh yeah, of course. It's always a new discovery, a new joy, and a new sense of pleasure on behalf of our children. And the painting seems like it's going to work. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of this up, and we'll have a little bit of video maybe to show at the end, see how it all turns out. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching, and there's more to come, Lord willing. Just some final touch-ups here. The first layer, and maybe the only one, this is actually seems to be covering very well. First layer is down. There are a few spots where I got a little bit out of the lines, so I'll need to do some sanding, but this is the right brush for this size groove. I'm sure if I had a really fancy, expensive brush, I would be impressed by it, but my Dollar General store multi-pack brush is getting the job done, at least for what I'm trying to do. So I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. See if I can get a little bit of this stuff that's drying out and hit a couple of more spots where I saw I needed a little bit of touch-up. Yeah, that's a little too thick, but I think it'll sand up all right. This is a really hard wood. Is it oak? I think maybe it is. And once it's good and dry, I'm probably going to give it till maybe Sunday, just as a bit of overkill on the drying. And I wonder how many spots I'm going to see that I missed after I think I'm done. Well, as I said, that story about a tiny little girl who has grown up to be a very accomplished young woman who is about to have a tiny little boy that will be a joy in her life, has been a joy in my life long before she made that big roundabout adventure in her bedroom, and long since. But that one special memory is pretty much priceless for me, and my appreciation for who she is, and without her even knowing it, she was putting giving a wonderful gift to me, and I think to her mom too. I'm sure she would say the same, of seeing a determined little child grow up into accomplish something that is very indicative of the woman she's grown to be. Now, on a metaphoric level, that's something similar to the Lloyd Alexander Terran Wanderer stories. And as I think about it, I don't think there could be a better time to tell that story in relation to one of the books that we love. One of the stories that is fictional that has been a real world motivator and agent of blessing in our lives. I don't know. A lot of people haven't heard of Taran Wanderer, but even though it's been made into a pretty decent movie, still a lot of people have read Chronicles of Narnia, know Lord of the Rings and all of that, but don't know so much about Taran the pig keeper who had a greater destiny. And not a lot of people know our stories, but every time we try to move forward and reach a goal and discover more about ourselves and the things that we're able to do and accomplish, the more our adventure becomes a story worth remembering and a story worth sharing. And I appreciate the chance to share all this with you. As always, I'm very blessed and grateful for those blessings, including this time that we get to spend together. Thank you.